In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The river and the palace. Musa was born under a death sentence. In Egypt, Pharaoh had raised himself above the people. He divided society into classes, weakened the children of Israel, and ordered their sons to be killed while their women were spared. The violence was not random. It was a system of fear designed to keep an entire people broken, dependent, and unable to resist. Pharaoh believed that power belonged to him because soldiers obeyed him. Officials repeated his words, and rivers flowed through the kingdom beneath his rule. The Qur'an describes him exalting himself in the land, dividing its people, weakening one group, and slaughtering their sons. In other passages, the children of Israel are reminded that Allah saved them from a people who imposed terrible suffering upon them. The oppression was political, social, and deeply personal. Every household lived beneath the knowledge that the ruler could reach into the family itself. The Qur'an does not identify this Pharaoh by a modern historical name, and it does not connect the children of Israel to the building of the pyramids. The moral force of the story does not depend on speculative archaeology. Pharaoh is shown through his actions and claims, a ruler who treated human beings as property and demanded the obedience that belongs only to Allah. But while Pharaoh was planning how to preserve his throne, Allah was planning the fall of that throne through a child Pharaoh could not yet see. The Qur'an introduces the story with a promise. Allah intended to favor those who had been oppressed, make them leaders, grant them inheritance, establish them in the land, and show Pharaoh, Haman, and their forces the very outcome they feared. Musa is named more often in the Qur'an than any other prophet. Yet his life is not told in one continuous chapter. The revelation returns to him across many surahs, sometimes focusing on a mother's fear, sometimes on a tyrant's arrogance, sometimes on a public miracle, and sometimes on the exhaustion of leadership after victory. This means the story must be gathered with care. One passage gives the intimate detail of the river, another gives the debate before Pharaoh, another gives the magician's private fear and public courage, another gives the prayer of the believer inside Pharaoh's family, another gives the sea, the mountain, the calf, the wilderness, or the journey for knowledge. The events belong to one life, but each retelling has its own purpose. The Qur'an does not repeat Musa's story because the first telling was incomplete. It repeats the story because the same life contains lessons for the frightened mother, the oppressed community, the person confronting power, the leader carrying difficult people, the wealthy person tempted by pride, and the student who must admit that he does not know everything. The complete story therefore begins not with a palace or a miracle, but with a society organized around fear. Pharaoh's violence had entered the home, the family, and the cradle. Allah's answer would also begin inside a home, through a mother whose obedience seemed small to the world, but was connected to the collapse of an empire. The first movement of this promise began inside the home of a mother. The mother of Musa gave birth at a time when the arrival of a baby boy could bring terror to a family. Allah inspired her with an instruction that would have seemed impossible to any ordinary heart. Nurse him, and when you fear for him, place him into the river. Do not fear and do not grieve. Allah promised that he would return the child to her and make him one of his messengers. Imagine the weight of that command. A mother holding the son she loved, hearing the threat outside her home, then placing him inside a chest and releasing it onto the water. She did not do this because she had abandoned him. She did it because she trusted the command of Allah more than she trusted what her eyes could see. The river carried the chest away from her arms. The mother of Musa had obeyed, but obedience did not erase the pain of motherhood. Trust in Allah is not the absence of feeling. A believer may obey while the heart trembles. The Qur'an does not shame her fear. Instead, it shows Allah strengthening her through it. Allah told Musa many years later that the river would cast him onto the bank, where an enemy of Allah and an enemy of Musa would take him. Allah also said that He had placed love upon Musa so that he would be raised under divine care. The chest reached the household of Pharaoh. The very palace from which the order of death had come now received the child who would one day stand before its throne. Pharaoh's wife pleaded that the infant should not be killed. She called him a comfort to the eye and hoped that he might benefit them or be taken as a son. There is a striking contrast in the Quranic account. Pharaoh's policy declared that boys from the oppressed people must die. Yet inside his own house, compassion interrupted the policy. Allah can place protection in a location that appears to contain only danger. He can make an enemy's roof shelter the person who will later confront that enemy. The Qur'an does not ask us to invent long, private conversations in the palace. It gives us what matters. Allah placed love upon Musa, and the enemy's own household became the place of his protection. Authentic hadith gives us the name Asiya for Pharaoh's wife. Prophet Muhammad later named her, together with Maryam, the daughter of Imran, among women who reached a distinguished perfection in faith. The Qur'an does not use her name in the infancy scene, so the account remains precise. The Qur'an tells us what Pharaoh's wife said, while the authentic Sunnah gives us her name and honor. The same woman would later reject the lordship claimed by the man, whose palace surrounded her. The infant she helped protect, and the faith she later embraced both show the same reality. Allah can place guidance inside the center of a system built upon disbelief. But the story was not yet complete. Musa refused every wet nurse brought to him. In another part of the city, his mother was almost overwhelmed by grief. The Qur'an says that her heart became empty. She nearly revealed the secret, but Allah strengthened her heart so that she would remain among the believers. Musa's sister followed from a distance. She watched without being noticed. When the palace searched for someone able to nurse the child, the sister suggested a household that could care for him sincerely. And so, Allah returned Musa to his mother. The child she had placed upon the river came back into her arms, now protected by the palace itself. She could nurse him without hiding him. Her eyes were comforted, her grief was lifted, and she learned through experience that the promise of Allah is true. The return to his mother completed every part of Allah's promise. She did not merely receive her son again. She received him in a way that allowed her to care for him openly, while the household of Pharaoh provided the protection that Pharaoh's own decree had made necessary. Musa's sister also belongs to this moment of divine planning. She followed from a distance, watched carefully, recognized the need in the palace, and spoke at the right time. Revelation does not name her, but it records her intelligence and courage. Allah's plan moved through the trust of a mother and the careful attention of a sister. The lesson is not that fear disappears when a person trusts Allah. Musa's mother feared and grieved. The Qur'an says her heart nearly disclosed what had happened. Allah strengthened her heart so that she could remain among the believers. Faith did not make her less human. Faith held her together when her human strength was close to breaking. Years later, Musa would stand before the sea and tell his people that his Lord was with him and would guide him. The certainty of that moment had roots in the story he had lived before he could remember it. His life had already been carried through a river, surrounded by enemies, and returned by a promise no human plan could have fulfilled. This was the first great pattern in Musa's life. Danger would surround him, human plans would close in, and then Allah would open a path no one had expected. Musa grew within a world divided between palace privilege and the suffering of his own people. He knew the household of Pharaoh, but he also knew that he belonged to the oppressed community. This position did not make him a servant of the palace. When injustice appeared before him, his instinct was to defend the one being wronged. The Qur'an does not narrate invented scenes of royal education, military rank, or secret palace rivalry. It gives us only what is needed for guidance. The Qur'an does not give us a fictional account of his childhood, and we do not invent one. It tells us that when he reached full strength and maturity, Allah granted him judgment and knowledge. One day, Musa entered the city at a time when its people were not paying attention. He found two men fighting. One was from the children of Israel, and the other was from Pharaoh's people. The Israelite called upon Musa for help. Musa struck the other man once, and the blow caused his death. The Qur'an does not present this as planned murder. Musa had intervened in a conflict, but the result was far more serious than he intended. The moment he saw what had happened, he did not defend himself with pride. He recognized the gravity of the act and said that it was from the work of Shaitan, an enemy who leads people into error. Musa turned immediately to Allah and admitted that he had wronged himself. He asked for forgiveness, and Allah forgave him. This scene reveals something essential about prophetic character. Greatness is not pretending that an error never happened. Musa did not shift blame, create excuses, or make the mistake into an identity. He repented, received forgiveness, and promised that because of the favor Allah had shown him, he would never become a supporter of criminals. Musa's repentance also protects the story from two opposite errors. One error is to treat the unintended death as if it were a calculated murder. The other is to imagine that honor requires denying every human error. The Qur'an does neither. It records the action, the unintended death, Musa's immediate recognition, his prayer, and Allah's forgiveness. The same revelation that honors him as a messenger does not hide the moment in which he needed forgiveness. That honesty does not lower Musa. It shows the purity of a heart that returned to Allah without delay. Musa also made a moral commitment after being forgiven. Because Allah had favored him, he would not become a supporter of criminals. Forgiveness was not treated as permission to return to the same pattern. It produced a changed intention. The next day's conflict then taught another lesson. Supporting the oppressed does not require supporting every action of a person from one's own group. Musa recognized that the Israelite who called him again was involved in repeated conflict. Justice is not blind loyalty. A believer does not turn identity into an excuse for wrongdoing. The following day, the same Israelite called to him during another dispute. Musa realized that this man repeatedly pulled others into conflict. When Musa moved forward, the man feared that Musa intended to strike him and cried out, exposing what had happened the day before. The secret was spreading. Then a man came running from the far side of the city. He warned Musa that the chiefs were discussing how to kill him and advised him to leave immediately. Musa departed in fear, watching the road around him and praying that Allah would save him from the wrongdoing people. The fear of Musa is important. Prophets are not emotionless figures. Courage does not mean never feeling danger. Courage means moving in obedience while seeking protection from Allah. Musa left because remaining would have placed him in the hands of an unjust system. His departure was not cowardice. It was wisdom, survival, and the beginning of a new stage in Allah's plan. He left the city that had raised him. He had no army, no wealth, and no clear map of what would come next. The palace was behind him. The open desert was ahead. He traveled toward Madyan, asking Allah to guide him to the right way, the well and the fire. The Qur'an does not describe every day of the journey. It gives us the image of a man who had once lived near power, now walking alone, depending upon Allah for direction. When Musa reached the water of Madyan, he found a crowd of men watering their animals. The well was a place of movement, labor, and competition. The strongest arrived, watered, and left. Those with less strength waited behind. Among the crowd, Musa noticed what others may have ignored. Apart from them, he noticed two women holding back their flock. He asked why they were waiting. They explained that they could not water until the shepherds had finished and that their father was an elderly man. Musa had just escaped for his life. He was exhausted, alone, and in need. Yet when he saw others needing help, he helped them first. He watered their flock, then withdrew into the shade. There, with no palace, no home, and no visible security, he made one of the most beautiful prayers in the story. My Lord, I am truly in need of whatever good you send down to me. He did not dictate the form of the answer. He did not demand wealth, status, or revenge. He admitted his need before Allah. Soon, one of the women returned, walking with modesty. She told Musa that her father wished to reward him for watering their animals. Musa went with her and told the elderly man his story. The man reassured him that he had escaped from the wrongdoing people. One of the women recommended Musa for employment, describing him as strong and trustworthy. Her recommendation joined two qualities that leadership always requires. Strength without trustworthiness becomes oppression. Trustworthiness without the ability to act may leave good intentions powerless. Musa had shown both. Strength at the well and dignity in the way he dealt with the women and their father. The father offered him marriage to one of his daughters in return for 8 years of service, with 10 years as a generous completion if Musa chose it. The description, strong and trustworthy, came from observation, not flattery. The woman had seen enough to recognize that Musa could perform difficult work and could be trusted around the family. The Qur'an joins ability and character because either quality alone can become dangerous. The scene also protects modesty without turning it into weakness. The women explained their situation clearly. Musa helped without demanding a personal relationship. One woman returned with modesty and delivered her father's message. The father listened to Musa's account before making an offer. The arrangement was direct, dignified and practical. Musa's prayer beneath the shade was answered through work, family, safety and time. The response did not arrive as sudden wealth. Allah answered need by giving Musa a place to serve, a household to join, and years in which his character could mature. The Qur'an does not name the father, does not name the woman, and does not establish the popular claim that the man was Prophet Shu'aib. We leave unnamed what Allah left unnamed. The Qur'an allowed Musa to fulfill 8 years of service, with 10 years as the fuller completion. An authentic report from Ibn Abbas in Sahih al-Bukhari states that Musa completed the longer and better of the two periods. He therefore fulfilled 10 years. The report confirms his faithfulness to the agreement, but it does not give an authenticated name for his wife or establish that her father was Prophet Shu'aib. Musa accepted the agreement. The fugitive became a shepherd. The Qur'an does not give us a daily diary of these years, but their shape is meaningful. A shepherd must notice weakness, protect the vulnerable, search for lost animals, endure weather, manage limited resources, and remain alert while others rest. These are not glamorous tasks, yet they form the habits of patient leadership. Musa had once acted with sudden force in the city. In Madyan, years of steady responsibility prepared him for a mission that would require controlled strength. The man who had grown near a palace learned years of patient labor in the open land. He worked, built a family, carried responsibility, protected animals, learned the terrain, and lived far from the political power of Egypt. Those years were not an interruption in his story. They were preparation. 10 years is a long school of character. Musa learned to guide animals across open land, notice danger before it reached the flock, protect the weak, endure heat and solitude, and return every day to a responsibility that offered no applause. A throne teaches a person how power looks. Shepherding teaches how care feels. The years also gave Musa a household of his own. The Qur'an tells us that he later traveled with his family, but it does not invite us to invent private conversations or unsupported names. What matters is that the fugitive who had arrived alone at the well left Madyan as a husband, a worker who had honored his word, and a man prepared for a greater trust. Leadership would require strength, but also patience. It would require courage, but also service. Before Musa was commanded to confront a king, he spent years caring for a flock. When the agreed period had been fulfilled and Musa traveled with his family, the road brought him near a mountain on a dark night. He saw a fire in the distance. He told his family to remain where they were. Perhaps he could bring back news of the road or a burning branch to warm them. Musa walked toward the fire expecting guidance for a journey. Instead, he was approaching the moment that would change the history of nations, the fire and the throne. Musa approached the fire in the sacred valley of Tuwa. There, Allah called him. Musa was told that he stood in a sacred valley and was commanded to remove his sandals. Allah had chosen him. He was told to listen to what was revealed. Allah alone is worthy of worship, and prayer must be established for His remembrance. The hour is coming, even if its time is hidden, so every soul will be rewarded for what it strives to do. Allah speaking directly to Musa is among the greatest honors given to him. The Qur'an describes Musa as chosen, a messenger and a prophet, and says that Allah drew him near in conversation. Muslim scholars therefore call him Kalimullah, the one to whom Allah spoke. We affirm this honor exactly as Revelation gives it. We do not imagine the nature of Allah's speech, describe a form, or treat the created fire as Allah Himself. Musa heard the words of his Lord in the manner Allah willed, and the sacred valley became the place where a shepherd was commissioned as a messenger. This was not a dream of ambition. Musa had not come searching for authority. He had turned aside seeking warmth and direction for his family. Allah gave him something far greater: revelation, responsibility, and a mission that would take him back to the place from which he had fled. Allah asked Musa what was in his right hand. Allah already knew. The question drew Musa into the moment and allowed the ordinary staff of a shepherd to become part of a sign. What had supported Musa during years of work would now, by Allah's permission, stand before a king. Musa answered that it was his staff. He leaned upon it, brought down leaves for his sheep, and used it for other needs. He was commanded to throw it down. The staff became a moving serpent. Musa turned away in fear and did not look back, but Allah reassured him. He was commanded to take it without fear, and it would return to its former state. Then Musa was told to draw his hand close to his side. It emerged radiant and bright, without disease or harm. These were two signs from Allah, not powers belonging independently to Musa. The Qur'an describes the staff with more than one expression across its retellings. It moved like a swift serpent when Musa first saw it, and before Pharaoh it appeared as a clear and formidable serpent. The language gives the sign force without turning it into a creature from fantasy. The radiant hand was likewise a sign without disease or injury. Pharaoh's system had demanded gold bracelets and visible symbols of status. Allah gave Musa signs that required no royal ornament. A shepherd's staff and an ordinary hand became sufficient proof when Allah commanded them. Musa's fear at the moving staff was genuine. Allah did not shame him for turning away. He reassured him and taught him to take hold of it. The messenger, who would later tell a nation not to fear at the sea, first learned how divine reassurance meets a frightened human heart. Then came the command, "Go to Pharaoh, for he has transgressed." Musa did not answer with arrogance. He understood the weight of the task and asked Allah for what he needed. He prayed that his chest be expanded, his task made easy, and the knot from his tongue loosened so that people would understand his speech. He also remembered the man whose death had occurred in Egypt and feared that Pharaoh's people might kill him. He asked that his brother Harun be appointed as a supporter from his family, strengthening him and sharing the burden of the mission. Harun was more eloquent in speech and could confirm Musa before the people. Allah accepted his prayer. Harun was not merely an assistant. He was a prophet chosen by Allah, a brother who would stand beside Musa before the greatest political power of their time. The prayer for Harun also reveals Musa's understanding of leadership. He did not ask that every honor remain with him. He asked for help from someone more eloquent, someone who could strengthen him, share the burden, and remember Allah with him. Prophetic leadership was not built upon jealousy. It was built upon cooperation in obedience. Harun's dignity must remain clear throughout the story. He was not merely Musa's spokesman. Allah describes him as a prophet granted to Musa out of mercy. Allah told the two brothers to go together, remember him constantly, and remain steady before Pharaoh. Harun brought eloquence, support, and shared worship to the mission. Later, when Musa went to the mountain, Harun would carry responsibility for the community. When the calf appeared, Harun would stand against it, even when the people weakened him and nearly harmed him. His life in the story is a reminder that supporting a messenger is itself an honored prophetic mission. Musa's request for his brother also reveals humility. He openly named a strength Harun possessed more clearly than he did. He did not fear that another person's eloquence would reduce his own rank. He asked Allah to make his brother a partner in the burden, so that together they could glorify and remember him often. Allah reminded Musa that this was not the first time divine care had surrounded him. He had been inspired to his mother, carried upon the river, taken into Pharaoh's house, returned to his family, saved after the accidental death, and brought through years of testing. Allah had formed him under his care. The Lord, who had guided him from the river to Madyan, would not abandon him at the gates of Pharaoh. Then Allah gave Musa and Harun a command that remains astonishing. Speak gently to Pharaoh, so that perhaps he may take heed or fear Allah. Pharaoh had killed sons, enslaved a people, and claimed authority that belonged to Allah alone. Yet Musa and Harun were told to begin with measured and gentle speech. Truth did not require them to imitate the cruelty of the tyrant they opposed. They feared that Pharaoh might punish them or increase in oppression. Allah told them not to fear. He was with them, hearing and seeing. They were instructed to tell Pharaoh that they were messengers from his Lord. that he must release the children of Israel, and that peace would be upon the one who followed guidance. They were also told to remind Pharaoh that Allah had created, proportioned, guided, and provided for every living thing. The tyrant who claimed ownership of Egypt had not created even himself. They warned that punishment would fall upon those who denied and turned away. Pharaoh also tried to redirect the conversation toward earlier generations. He asked what had happened to the people of the past, perhaps hoping to trap Musa in speculation or make him answer for matters beyond the mission before him. Musa answered that knowledge of them was with his Lord in a record. His Lord neither errs nor forgets. The answer refused both ignorance and false certainty. Musa did not claim knowledge Allah had not given him, and he did not allow Pharaoh to use the unseen as a distraction from the truth already standing before him. Musa then described the signs of Allah in creation. The earth made as a place of settlement, roads opened through it, water sent down from the sky, and pairs of varied plants brought forth. People and their animals ate from that provision. From the earth human beings were created. To it they return, and from it they will be brought out again. This part of the debate matters because Pharaoh's political claims were placed beside the ordinary signs of creation. Pharaoh pointed to Egypt and its rivers as evidence of his greatness. Musa pointed to the Lord who made the earth, rain, paths, plants, life, death, and resurrection. Pharaoh owned none of the foundations upon which his kingdom depended. Musa returned to Egypt with revelation, signs, and his brother beside him. When Musa and Harun entered before Pharaoh, they declared that they were messengers from the Lord of the worlds. They demanded that the children of Israel be released and no longer tormented. Pharaoh tried to control the conversation by dragging Musa back into his past. Had he not been raised in the palace? Had he not lived among them for years? Had he not committed the act that caused a man's death? Musa did not deny what had happened. He said that he had acted at a time when he did not yet possess the guidance of his mission, then fled when he feared them, and that his Lord had granted him judgment and made him a messenger. He also exposed the strange nature of Pharaoh's supposed favor. Pharaoh reminded Musa that he had raised one child while enslaving an entire people. Pharaoh then asked, with mockery and challenge, "What is the Lord of the worlds?" Musa answered that he is the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them, if they would only have certainty. Pharaoh turned to the people around him, trying to make Musa's answer seem absurd. Musa continued, "Allah is your Lord and the Lord of your forefathers." Pharaoh accused him of madness. Musa answered again, "He is the Lord of the east and the west and everything between them, if you would only use reason." The debate exposed two completely different understandings of power. Pharaoh believed lordship was proven by visible control over land, soldiers, buildings, and rivers. Musa called him to the one who created direction itself, the one who owned east and west before Pharaoh was born and would own them after Pharaoh was gone. Pharaoh threatened to imprison Musa if he accepted any god besides him. This threat showed that Pharaoh's claim was not only theological arrogance, it was enforced by the state. He had prisons for those who challenged his narrative, soldiers for those who resisted his policy, and public punishments for those who believed without his permission. Musa asked whether Pharaoh would still reject the message if he brought a clear sign. Pharaoh demanded that he produce it. Musa cast the staff, and it became a clear serpent. He drew out his hand, and it appeared radiant to those watching. Pharaoh and his chiefs called the sign sorcery. They claimed that Musa intended to drive them from their land and destroy their way of life. This is one of tyranny's oldest methods. When evidence cannot be answered, the messenger is described as a threat to national stability. Pharaoh reframed the call to worship Allah as a conspiracy to seize the land. He turned a demand for freedom into an accusation against the oppressed. The Qur'an repeatedly exposes this manipulation. Pharaoh feared not that Musa lacked proof, but that truth would break the control he held over the people. Pharaoh's system rested upon more than a crown. He divided the population, relied upon loyal chiefs, threatened public torture, controlled the story told to the people, and presented his own opinion as the only safe path. He boasted that the kingdom of Egypt belonged to him and that rivers flowed beneath him. He mocked Musa and questioned why Musa did not wear bracelets of gold or arrive surrounded by angels. He called himself the highest Lord. He claimed to know no God for his people other than himself. At another point, he ordered Haman to build a towering structure, pretending that he might rise to look upon the God of Musa. It was not sincere inquiry. It was propaganda, mockery dressed in the language of investigation. Pharaoh's mockery of Musa's speech was another attempt to turn appearance into authority. He asked why bracelets of gold had not been placed upon Musa or angels sent beside him. He wanted the public to measure truth by jewelry, rank, and spectacle. The Qur'an says Pharaoh made his people light, and they obeyed him. Tyranny does not survive through force alone. It trains people to react quickly to slogans, mock what the ruler mocks, and accept his values as the only values that matter. Pharaoh diminished his people intellectually and morally until they followed him into disobedience. Musa's mission challenged that entire structure. He did not arrive with palace decorations. He arrived with a message that restored moral weight to people Pharaoh had reduced to a class. He spoke of a Lord before whom king and slave stood equally accountable. Yet truth had entered Pharaoh's own house and political circle. Authentic hadith names Pharaoh's wife Asiya. The Qur'an later presents Pharaoh's wife as an example for every believer. Surrounded by wealth and power, she asked Allah to build for her a house near him in paradise and to save her from Pharaoh, his deeds, and the wrongdoing people. Prophet Muhammad also named Asiya among the women who reached a distinguished level of perfection in faith. Pharaoh could control the palace, its servants, and its public speech, but he could not command belief inside another heart. A man from Pharaoh's family concealed his faith, then rose to defend Musa. He asked the people whether they would kill a man simply because he said that his Lord was Allah, especially after he had brought clear signs. If Musa were lying, the lie would fall upon him. But if he were truthful, some of the punishment he warned about would reach them. The believing man reminded them of the fate of earlier nations. He spoke of the people of Nuh, Ad, Thamud, and those who came after them. He warned that Allah does not intend injustice for his servants. He reminded them that Yusuf had previously brought clear proofs, yet people continued doubting until they imagined that Allah would send no messenger after him. This man's speech is one of the longest recorded defenses of truth by an unnamed believer in the Qur'an. His identity is not given. His courage is enough. He warned them of a day when they would turn and flee with no protector from Allah. He spoke of Yusuf, who had brought clear signs generations before, and how people continued to doubt even after his death. The believing man's sermon moved from immediate justice to final accountability. He reminded the court that worldly authority would not protect them if Allah's punishment arrived. He feared for them a day of mutual calling, a day when people would turn away with no protector from Allah. He also exposed the contradiction in their invitation. He called them toward salvation, while they called him toward the fire. They asked him to associate with Allah something of which he had no knowledge. He called them to the Almighty, the forgiving. His words carried both warning and hope. Pharaoh's crimes were enormous, yet the believer still called his people to repentance. He did not speak as though the door had already closed upon every listener. He warned them because guidance remained possible. When the court rejected him, he said that they would remember what he was telling them, and he entrusted his affair to Allah. Revelation then states that Allah protected him from the evil they plotted. A believer with no army survived by entrusting his affair to the one Pharaoh denied. Pharaoh answered with the language of every tyrant, "I only show you what I see, and I guide you only to the right way." The believer continued. He warned his people not to exchange the lasting world for temporary power. He called them toward salvation, while they called him toward the fire. He entrusted his affair to Allah, and Allah protected him from the evil they planned. The believing man finally entrusted his affair to Allah. The Qur'an says Allah protected him from the evils they plotted, while a terrible punishment surrounded Pharaoh's people. His story stands beside Asiya's as evidence that Pharaoh never possessed every heart within his own house. The palace contained a tyrant, but it also contained believers who understood that survival of the soul mattered more than comfort under the throne. Pharaoh, however, refused to surrender control. His chiefs advised him to delay Musa and Harun, while messengers gathered the most skilled magicians from across the land. Pharaoh wanted a public victory. His plan depended upon spectacle. Private evidence could be dismissed. A public contest could be controlled, announced, and turned into propaganda. If the magicians defeated Musa before the people, Pharaoh would claim that the entire mission had been exposed as fraud. He would gather the empire's experts, place them before the people on a festival day, and prove that Musa was nothing more than another magician. The throne believed it was arranging the humiliation of a messenger. In reality, Pharaoh was assembling witnesses for a miracle: the magicians, the signs, and the night departure. The appointed day arrived. Across Egypt, the contest had been presented as a defining moment. The people were encouraged to gather and support the magicians, hoping that the old order would prevail. The stage was political as much as it was spiritual. Pharaoh's authority stood behind one side, while two messengers stood on the other with no army and no wealth. The Qur'an calls it the Day of Adornment, a public occasion when people would gather in the brightness of the morning. Pharaoh wanted the largest possible audience. If Musa could be defeated before the nation, resistance would end and the throne would appear stronger than ever. The magicians came expecting reward, status, and closeness to Pharaoh. They asked whether they would be paid if they were victorious. Pharaoh promised that they would become members of his inner circle. Musa warned them before the contest began. Do not invent a lie against Allah, or a punishment will destroy you. Those who fabricate against Allah will never succeed. The magicians debated among themselves and concealed their discussion. Then they formed their plan. They told one another that Musa and Harun were magicians who wanted to drive them from their land and destroy their honored way of life. They urged each other to stand together in one line because the successful side that day would gain power. They asked Musa whether he would throw first or allow them to begin. Musa told them to throw. Their ropes and staffs appeared to move. The Qur'an says that they bewitched the eyes of the people and inspired fear. The effect was not treated as harmless performance. It was deliberate deception used in the service of tyranny. They affected the eyes of the crowd and produced a terrifying spectacle. Even Musa felt human apprehension within himself. Allah reassured him, "Do not fear, you will overcome. Throw what is in your right hand. It will swallow what they have produced." What they made is only the work of a magician, and a magician does not truly succeed wherever he goes. Musa cast the staff. By Allah's permission, it swallowed what they had fabricated. The magicians understood immediately what Pharaoh and the crowd did not. They knew the limits of their own craft. They knew deception, performance, and the manipulation of perception. What they had just witnessed was not a more advanced version of their art. It was a sign from the Lord of the worlds. They fell into prostration. They did not ask Pharaoh for time to reconsider their contracts. They did not wait to see which side the crowd supported. Recognition of truth moved them directly to submission. They declared their faith in the Lord of Harun and Musa. In a matter of moments, the people Pharaoh had gathered to protect his authority became believers in public. Their knowledge led them to recognize the truth faster than the political elite standing beside the throne. Pharaoh was furious. He accused them of believing before he had granted permission, as though faith itself required the approval of a king. He claimed that Musa must have been their teacher and that the entire event was a conspiracy designed to remove the people from Egypt. Then he threatened them. He would cut off their hands and feet on opposite sides. He would crucify them on the trunks of palm trees. He would make them know which punishment was more severe and lasting. His punishment, or the punishment Musa had warned about. But the magicians who had arrived seeking payment were no longer afraid of losing the world. They answered that they would never prefer Pharaoh over the clear proofs that had reached them and over the one who created them. Pharaoh could only decide matters in this temporary life. They had believed in their Lord so that he might forgive their sins and the magic they had been compelled to perform. They prayed that Allah would pour patience upon them and allow them to die in submission. The magician's prayer revealed how completely their priorities had changed. A few moments earlier, they had asked Pharaoh about payment and closeness to the throne. After recognizing the sign, they asked Allah for patience and a faithful death. They did not claim that Pharaoh's torture would be painless. They placed his punishment beside the punishment and reward of the hereafter. Pharaoh could reach their bodies for a short time. He could not control the destination of their souls. Their expertise had once been used to maintain an illusion. The same expertise became the reason they recognized the miracle. Knowledge is not automatically guidance, but honest knowledge can make denial impossible when the truth appears. The Qur'an does not narrate a long period of gradual change for them. Their transformation happened in public and under threat. This is one of the clearest examples in Revelation of immediate repentance. When they knew, they submitted. The Qur'an does not tell us how many magicians there were or provide their names. It gives us what matters. People who began the morning serving a tyrant ended it ready to die for Allah. Their transformation was one of the greatest public defeats Pharaoh could suffer. The experts he trusted had become witnesses against him. The prostration of the magicians taught the crowd that knowledge is valuable only when it leads a person to humility. Expertise can serve falsehood for years, then one honest moment can redirect an entire life. He had chosen the time, the place, the experts, and the audience. Yet the result exposed the truth he had hoped to bury. Still, arrogance rarely admits defeat. Pharaoh did not ask why the masters of magic had prostrated. He simply increased his threats. Years of signs followed. The people of Pharaoh were struck by drought and shortage of produce so that they might take heed. The Qur'an describes years of hardship, suggesting that the confrontation was not a short sequence of dramatic days. Musa and Harun continued their mission through time, while Pharaoh continued to resist. When ease returned, they credited themselves. When hardship came, they treated Musa and those with him as an evil omen. Their superstition allowed them to blame the messenger while avoiding the truth of their own rebellion. Then came distinct signs named in the Qur'an: the flood, locust, kumul, a word translated in different ways, including lice or similar pests, frogs, and blood. The Qur'an does not give us the complete plague list found in other religious traditions, and we do not import details that Revelation does not establish. We stay with the signs Allah named. The Qur'an also states that Musa was given 9 clear signs. Scholars differed over the exact way those signs are counted. A common explanation includes the staff and the radiant hand together with the years of drought, shortage of produce, flood, locusts, kumul, frogs, and blood. Other scholars combine or arrange the signs differently. The number is revealed, but a single detailed enumeration is not stated in one verse. What remains certain is that Pharaoh received sign after sign, each clear enough to demand humility. This difference in enumeration does not weaken the account. It teaches restraint. Where Revelation names a sign, we name it. Where scholars counted the collection differently, we acknowledge the difference rather than pretending that one arrangement is the wording of the Qur'an itself. Each sign exposed Pharaoh's weakness. The flood overwhelmed ordinary boundaries. Locusts consumed what people relied upon. Small creatures entered spaces guarded by armies. Frogs multiplied beyond control. Water itself became a sign against them. The details are powerful precisely because they overturn Pharaoh's claim. His kingdom appeared enormous, yet Allah used creation around him to expose how little he truly controlled. A ruler who claimed mastery over the land could not command the rain, the crops, the insects, the water, or the smallest creatures. Whenever suffering became unbearable, Pharaoh's people came to Musa and asked him to pray to his Lord. They appealed to the covenant Allah had given him. They promised that if the punishment were removed, they would believe and allow the children of Israel to leave. Musa prayed. The sign was lifted for a period. They broke their promise. This cycle revealed that their problem was not confusion. When punishment came, they knew whom to ask. They called upon Musa because they understood that the sign was connected to the Lord who sent him. Once relief arrived, they chose denial again. Again and again, relief did not soften them. It only gave them another opportunity to return to arrogance. The cycle of sign, promise, relief, and betrayal exposed the difference between desperation and repentance. During pain, Pharaoh's people promised belief. When relief came, they returned to the same arrogance. They wanted the punishment removed without allowing the truth to change them. This pattern also explains why the final supplication against Pharaoh came so late. Musa and Harun had not rushed to ask for destruction. They had spoken gently, debated clearly, shown signs, endured threats, prayed for relief, and watched promise after promise break. The Qur'an presents Pharaoh's downfall as the conclusion of persistent chosen rebellion. He was not destroyed for asking a sincere question or needing time to understand. He was destroyed after recognition had become resistance, and power had become a tool for leading others away from Allah. Pharaoh's chiefs feared that Musa and his people would cause change in the land and leave Pharaoh and the gods or practices he represented. Pharaoh answered by renewing the policy of killing sons and sparing women. He wanted the people to believe that he still controlled life and death. The children of Israel were reminded to seek help from Allah and remain patient. The earth belongs to Allah, and He grants its inheritance to whom He wills. The final outcome belongs to those who remain mindful of Him. Musa's people complained that they had been harmed before he came, and were still being harmed after his arrival. Their words reflected exhaustion. They had expected the arrival of a messenger to produce immediate freedom, yet Pharaoh's pressure increased. Musa taught them that faith does not turn every struggle into instant ease. Sometimes the promise is certain while the timing remains hidden. Musa did not promise an easy road. He told them that perhaps Allah would destroy their enemy, grant them succession in the land, and then see how they acted. This is one of the difficult truths in the story. Deliverance may be promised, yet the path toward it can still contain fear, waiting, and sacrifice. Pharaoh had seen the staff, the radiant hand, the belief of the magicians, the drought, the flood, the locusts, the pests, the frogs, and the blood. The problem was no longer a lack of evidence. The problem was a heart committed to power at any cost. The Qur'an describes how fear affected those living under Pharaoh. Only a young or vulnerable group believed openly at first, afraid that Pharaoh and his chiefs would persecute them. Musa told the believers that if they had truly submitted to Allah, they must place their trust in Him. They prayed that Allah would not make them a trial for the wrongdoing people, and that He would save them by His mercy. Allah then inspired Musa and Harun to establish houses for their people in Egypt, to make those houses oriented as places of worship, to establish prayer, and to give good news to the believers. Before the sea opened, faith was being organized inside homes. A persecuted community was taught that worship could not wait for political freedom. Their houses became places of direction, prayer, identity, and courage. This instruction also shows Harun's active role. The command was given to both brothers. Together, they built spiritual steadiness among a people who were still living beneath Pharaoh's pressure. The Exodus would move their bodies out of Egypt, but prayer had already begun to move their hearts away from Pharaoh's claim. After the signs, the broken promises, and the deliberate use of wealth to mislead people, Musa made a severe supplication. He acknowledged that Pharaoh and his chiefs had been given splendor and wealth in worldly life, and he prayed that the power they used to turn people from Allah's path would be removed and their hearts sealed until they saw the painful punishment. This was not a prayer made at the beginning of the mission or from wounded pride. It came after clear signs, gentle speech, public proof, repeated relief, and repeated betrayal. Allah answered Musa and Harun. Their prayer had been accepted. They were commanded to remain upright and not follow the path of those who lacked knowledge. The answer joined acceptance with responsibility. Even after being told that the prayer was accepted, the brothers still had to remain steadfast. Divine promise did not cancel patient obedience. Then Allah commanded Musa to take the children of Israel out by night. The departure had to be quiet. The Qur'an says that Allah commanded Musa to travel by night because they would be pursued. This was not a spontaneous escape. It was revelation-guided movement at the exact time Allah chose. Families gathered what they could carry. They left the land where generations had lived under humiliation. Behind them stood the palaces, soldiers, and monuments of Pharaoh. Ahead of them was the unknown. When Pharaoh learned that they had gone, he sent messengers through the cities and gathered his forces. He described the departing people as a small and irritating group, while presenting his own army as disciplined and alert. The ruler, who had refused to release the children of Israel, now chased them with everything his empire could gather. The refugees moved through the darkness. Then the light revealed the sea before them, and behind them, the horizon filled with Pharaoh's army, the sea and the far shore. The children of Israel looked ahead and saw water. They had left homes, carried children and possessions, and traveled through the night. Now the sound of chariots, soldiers, and pursuit grew behind them. Pharaoh had mobilized the power of the state against families who had little ability to defend themselves. They looked behind and saw Pharaoh's forces approaching. To the people, the situation appeared closed. There was no visible road, no defensive position, and no power equal to the army behind them. They cried out that they would surely be overtaken. Musa answered with certainty, "No, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." At the river, Musa's mother had obeyed before seeing the path. At the sea, Musa spoke with the same trust. The circumstances were different, but the principle was the same. The believer acts upon Allah's command before the outcome becomes visible. These words were not denial of danger. The danger was real. The army was real. The sea was real. But the presence and promise of Allah were more real than all of them. Allah commanded Musa to strike the sea with his staff. The sea split. The Qur'an describes each separated part as being like a great mountain. A dry path opened through the water. Musa and his people were told not to fear being overtaken and not to fear drowning. The children of Israel crossed between towering walls of water. The Qur'an describes the path as dry, removing not only the barrier of water, but also the danger of sinking into mud. Allah did not merely make survival possible, He prepared a road. No human engineering created that road. No military plan had predicted it. The path appeared at the moment when every ordinary path had ended. The Qur'an does not tell us the exact width of the crossing, the number of people, the number of Pharaoh's soldiers, or the modern name of the sea. We do not need those details to understand the sign. Pharaoh reached the shore and saw the opening. For a person whose heart had remained open, this should have been the final warning. The sea had divided for the people he oppressed. The road itself testified that they were under divine protection. Yet Pharaoh interpreted even this as an opportunity to continue the chase. Even then, he did not stop. A person can witness a miracle and still refuse to humble himself. The same arrogance that had rejected every sign drove Pharaoh and his army into the path after the believers. When Musa and those with him had crossed, the sea returned. Pharaoh and his forces were overwhelmed. As drowning reached him, Pharaoh declared belief in the God in whom the children of Israel believed and claimed that he was now among those who submitted. But belief offered only when death is fully visible is not the same as faith chosen, while a person still has the opportunity to obey. Pharaoh had spent his life rejecting, oppressing, and corrupting. He was answered, "Now, after you disobeyed before and were among the corruptors." Allah preserved Pharaoh's body as a sign for those who came after him. The ruler who had elevated himself was reduced to a body without authority. His soldiers could no longer carry out his orders, his ministers could no longer protect his image, and his speeches could no longer control the people. Pharaoh's final words were not rejected, because the words of submission were unimportant. They were rejected because he waited until the unseen consequence had become visible and the opportunity for voluntary faith had ended. Throughout his life, Pharaoh demanded that others believe only with his permission. At death, he discovered that he could not decide the terms upon which his own belief would be accepted. The man who controlled public declarations could not control the judgment of Allah. The preservation of his body therefore carried a double sign. It showed that the drowning was real, and it separated the body from the claims once attached to it. The body remained, but the supposed lordship, kingdom, army, and command were gone. The Qur'an does not identify a particular modern mummy, museum, or historical name. It gives the sign without inviting us to build certainty upon speculation. The empire that had treated the children of Israel as property could not follow them through the sea. Pharaoh's claim to supreme lordship ended beneath water he could not command. The promise planted at the beginning of the story had come true. Allah had willed to favor the oppressed and show the arrogant rulers the outcome they had feared. The Qur'an describes more than the drowning of an army. Allah allowed the oppressed people to inherit lands that had been blessed, and He destroyed what Pharaoh and his people had built and raised. Other verses speak of gardens, springs, treasures, cultivated places, and comfortable stations that the tyrants left behind. The possessions Pharaoh treated as proof of permanence remained after him. The people he despised survived him. The architecture of oppression could not protect its owners when Allah's command arrived. Allah later commanded Musa to remind his people of the days of Allah, the decisive moments in which divine mercy and justice become impossible to ignore. The Day of the Sea was one of those moments, not merely a dramatic escape, but a lasting lesson for every patient and grateful heart. There is a moment after rescue when sound seems to disappear. The Qur'an repeatedly asks believers to remember this deliverance, the separation of the sea, the rescue of Musa and his people, and the drowning of Pharaoh's forces while the oppressed watched. It became a foundational sign of Allah's justice and mercy. The army is gone. The sea is calm again. Survivors stand on the far shore and try to understand what they have witnessed. For the children of Israel, the physical enemy had been removed, but the beliefs formed during generations of slavery had not disappeared in one crossing. After the sea, they passed by a people devoted to idols. A group among them asked Musa to make a god for them, like the gods those people had. The request came after the sea had opened before them. Musa rebuked their ignorance. The practices of the idol worshippers were destined to collapse, and their worship was false. How could they seek another object of worship when Allah had favored them and delivered them from Pharaoh? This moment reveals how deeply habits can remain inside a community. They had lived among symbols of power, idols, royal claims, and visible objects of worship. When they saw another people devoted to idols, some wanted something similar they could see and possess. Musa reminded them that worship is not built upon imitation. A rescued people must not copy the falsehood of those they pass on the road. Physical chains may break in a single night. The beliefs formed under oppression and surrounding pagan culture can take far longer to correct. Their request for an idol was not simply a strange sentence spoken on a road. It revealed how visible symbols of power can remain inside the imagination after the ruler who used them is gone. The people had escaped Pharaoh, but some still wanted religion to resemble the object-based worship they had seen around them. Musa did not solve this by giving them a harmless symbol and redirecting its meaning. He rejected the request at its foundation. Allah had saved them, and worship belonged to Him alone. Freedom from tyranny required freedom from the tyrant's ideas about divinity. The episode also warns every later community. A person can witness rescue and still imitate the people of falsehood. Gratitude requires more than remembering the danger. It requires allowing revelation to define worship. Musa's work was not finished when Pharaoh drowned. In many ways, another form of leadership had just begun. He now had to guide a rescued people toward covenant, worship, gratitude, discipline, and trust. The same people who had witnessed signs would still be tested by fear, desire, impatience, and the influence of what they had seen around them. Allah appointed a meeting for Musa at the mountain. 30 nights, completed by 10 more, making 40. Before leaving, Musa placed Harun in charge and instructed him to lead with righteousness and not follow the path of corruption. Musa then went toward the appointed meeting with his Lord. He had once approached a fire seeking direction for the road. Now he climbed the mountain as a messenger leading a nation. Below him, Harun guarded the people. Among them, however, The Samiri was preparing a test that would expose how quickly some hearts could turn away. The mountain, the calf, and the wilderness. Musa completed the appointed nights. Allah spoke to him and gave him tablets containing guidance and instruction. Musa had fasted, waited, and separated himself from the people for the appointed time. The meeting was not an escape from leadership. It was the source of the law and guidance he would carry back to them. Musa had already been honored with direct speech from his Lord, and in that sacred moment he asked, "My Lord, show me, so that I may look at you." Allah told him that he would not see him in this worldly life, but instructed him to look toward the mountain. If the mountain remained firm, then Musa would see. When his Lord disclosed his glory to the mountain in the manner he willed, the mountain was leveled, and Musa fell unconscious. When he awoke, he glorified Allah, repented, and declared his faith. The event is narrated with reverence. We do not imagine the unseen, describe Allah, or claim that Musa saw what the Qur'an says was not granted to him in this life. Musa's request to see Allah was not the demand of a denier. It came from a messenger already chosen, already believing, and already honored with speech. He asked out of longing, and Allah taught him the limit of human capacity in worldly life. The mountain, stronger than a human body, could not remain when Allah disclosed his glory to it. Musa fell unconscious. When he awoke, he glorified Allah and repented from asking for what had not been granted. Islamic belief distinguishes this worldly event from the promise of the hereafter. Musa was not granted the vision in this life. The believer's vision of their Lord in the hereafter is affirmed through other revelation without imagining how. The documentary keeps these truths separate and does not turn the mountain scene into a visual representation of Allah. Allah told Musa that he had chosen him above the people of his time with his messages and his speech. Musa was commanded to take what he had been given and remain grateful. The tablets contain guidance and explanation. The Qur'an does not specify their material, size, number, color, or language, so we do not borrow those details from later stories. What matters is their purpose, guidance for a community that had been rescued and now needed to live as servants of Allah. Musa was told to hold them firmly and command his people to follow their best teachings. The wider Quranic description of Musa's revelation is equally important. Allah gave Musa the scripture after earlier generations had been destroyed, as insight for people, guidance and mercy. The Qur'an calls the Torah guidance and light. It also says Musa and Harun were given the criterion, illumination, and a reminder for those mindful of Allah. The tablets at the mountain belong to this larger gift of revelation. Their purpose was not to become mysterious objects in a legend. They carried commands, moral direction, and a covenant. The people who had been ruled by Pharaoh were now being taught how to live under the guidance of Allah. The Qur'an's praise belongs to the revelation originally given to Musa. It does not require an Islamic documentary to treat every later story or every transmitted textual detail as part of that untouched revelation. We honor the Torah Allah revealed while refusing to import unsupported material into Musa's life. But while Musa was at the mountain, the people below were being tested. They had carried ornaments from Egypt. The Samiri gathered or used these ornaments and produced the form of a calf. The Qur'an says it gave a lowing sound, but it does not establish the speculative mechanical explanations often repeated in popular storytelling. We narrate the sign of the test without inventing its mechanism. The Samiri fashioned from them the form of a calf that produced a lowing sound. He and those who followed him claimed that this was their god and the God of Musa, and that Musa had forgotten the way to it. The Qur'an asks a devastating question. Could they not see that the calf could not answer them, could not harm them, and could not benefit them? False worship often depends upon people giving an object a meaning it does not possess. The calf had shape and sound, but it had no knowledge, mercy, command, or power. It could not even speak to correct the claims made about it. Harun warned them clearly. He told them that they were only being tested, that their Lord was the most merciful, and that they must follow him and obey his command. They refused. They said that they would remain devoted to the calf until Musa returned. Harun did not create the calf and did not approve its worship. The Qur'an assigns the act to the Samiri and presents Harun as the prophet who opposed it. He feared that using force without Musa might split the community even more, and the people nearly overpowered him. Musa returned angry and deeply grieved. His anger was for the violation of Tawhid after the people had witnessed deliverance, revelation, and signs. He placed down the tablets and confronted the crisis before him. The Qur'an does not present his emotion as personal wounded pride. It was grief for a people turning from Allah. He asked why they had broken their promise and whether the time of their Lord's command had seemed too long. They claimed that they had not broken the promise by their own choice, but that they had carried burdens of ornaments and thrown them into the fire, and the Samiri had done the same. Musa turned to Harun and took him by the head and beard in anguish. Harun pleaded with his brother not to allow the enemy to rejoice over their conflict. He explained that the people had weakened him and nearly killed him, and that he feared Musa would say that he had divided the children of Israel and failed to follow his instruction. Musa understood and prayed, "My Lord, forgive me and my brother, and admit us into your mercy. You are the most merciful of those who show mercy." Then Musa confronted the Samiri. The samurai offered an explanation for what he had done. Musa pronounced judgment upon him. He would live separated, saying that no one should touch him, and a further appointment awaited him that he could not escape. When Musa asked the Samiri what had driven him, the Samiri answered with words the Qur'an preserves, but does not fully explain, through one uncontested interpretation. He said that he had perceived what the others had not perceived, taken a handful from the trace of the messenger, and cast it, because his soul had enticed him. Scholars discuss the exact meaning of this explanation. The narration does not need to turn one interpretation into certainty. The important fact is that the Samiri claimed a special perception and used it to justify an act that led people into idolatry. Private claims of unusual knowledge do not override public revelation. Harun had told the people that their Lord was the most merciful and commanded them to follow him. The Samiri offered spectacle. The people chose spectacle over the clear command of a prophet. The calf would be burned and scattered into the sea. Musa made clear that the object itself had no sanctity. It would be destroyed before the eyes of those who had worshipped it, exposing the helplessness of what they had treated as a god. The false object that some had treated as divine could not protect even itself. Musa reminded the people that their true God is Allah, besides whom there is no deity, and whose knowledge encompasses everything. Those who had worshipped the calf were required to undergo a severe repentance. The Qur'an establishes the seriousness of the command without asking us to invent graphic details. Idolatry, after such clear rescue, was not a minor error. Yet even after this betrayal, the door of repentance was not closed. The Qur'an records several other covenant-related events from this period. Their exact relationship to one another is not fully fixed, so they should not be forced into a single scene. The covenant was not an undefined promise. The Qur'an also records that Allah took a covenant from the children of Israel and appointed 12 leaders among them. They were commanded to establish prayer, give charity, believe in and support the messengers, and offer sincere good for the sake of Allah. Forgiveness and gardens were promised to those who fulfilled the covenant. This placed responsibility across the community. Musa and Harun were prophets, but a nation could not be carried by 2 men alone. Leaders were appointed, worship was commanded, and moral obligations were made clear. Rescue from Pharaoh had created an opportunity. Covenant determined what they would do with it. In one event, Musa selected 70 men from his people for an appointed meeting. A violent trembling overtook them, and Musa pleaded with Allah. He acknowledged that the event was a test through which Allah allows whom He wills to go astray and guides whom He wills. He asked Allah to forgive them, show mercy, and write goodness for them in this world and the next. Musa's supplication during the seizure of the 70 men showed the burden of representation. He asked whether the whole community would be destroyed for what foolish people among them had done. He acknowledged that the event was a trial, sought Allah as their protecting guardian, and asked for forgiveness and mercy. He then prayed that goodness be written for them in this world and the hereafter, declaring that they had turned back to Allah. Allah answered that His punishment reaches whom He wills, while His mercy encompasses all things. The passage then looks beyond Musa's immediate community. Allah promises that special mercy will be written for those who remain mindful, give charity, believe in His signs, and follow the unlettered messenger described in the earlier revelation. Musa's prayer therefore opens into a promise connected to the mission of Prophet Muhammad. This is one of the profound links between the 2 communities. Musa interceded for mercy, and the Qur'an described people who would later follow the final messenger, honor him, support him, and follow the light sent with him. In another account, people demanded to see Allah openly. This was not Musa's humble request at the mountain. It was a defiant demand from people who said they would not believe until they saw Allah plainly. The events must not be confused. A thunderbolt overtook them while they looked on, and they were later restored so that they might be grateful. The Qur'an also describes the mountain being raised above them when the covenant was taken, commanding them to hold firmly to what they had been given and remember its guidance. These passages may describe more than one event. We preserve the distinction rather than pretending to know what revelation left open. Nor were all of the children of Israel identical. The Qur'an speaks of a group among the people of Musa who guided with truth and established justice through it. 2 believing men later urged their people to enter the Holy Land and trust Allah. The repeated failures of many do not erase the faith of others. In the wilderness, Allah shaded them with clouds. In a harsh environment where heat and thirst could destroy a community, provision came in forms they could not produce for themselves. He provided manna and quails. When water was needed, Musa was commanded to strike the rock, and 12 springs flowed, with each group knowing its place to drink. The provision was clear, ordered, and sufficient. Yet some complained about eating the same kind of food. They asked for the produce of the earth: herbs, cucumbers, garlic, lentils, and onions. Musa asked whether they wished to exchange what was better for what was lower. Their request for different food was not condemned because lentils, onions, or ordinary produce are evil. The Qur'an itself describes such foods without declaring them forbidden. The criticism was directed at the exchange they were demanding and the spirit in which they demanded it. They were receiving provision in a barren place, yet they spoke as if the miracle were a burden and the ordinary produce of settled life were necessarily better. In ingratitude can make a gift feel small simply because it has become familiar. The verse then places their attitude within a broader history of rejecting signs and violating the rights of prophets. Complaint, argument, and disobedience are not harmless when they become a settled posture toward revelation. The problem was not that ordinary food is forbidden. The problem was ingratitude in the presence of miraculous provision and the refusal to recognize the value of what Allah had given. At another point, they were commanded to enter a town humbly, pass through its gate in submission, and ask for forgiveness. Wrongdoers changed the words they had been given, and punishment came upon them for their disobedience. They had been told to enter the gate in humility and ask that their burdens be removed. The command joined physical posture with repentance. Enter without arrogance, speak as instructed, and receive forgiveness. Some changed the word and altered the command, turning a moment of mercy into another act of resistance. The pattern was repeated. Allah gave clear guidance, yet some turned obedience into argument, delay, or alteration. This is why the story of Musa appears so often in the Qur'an. It is not only a record of miracles, it is an education in what happens after guidance arrives. Then Musa reminded his people of Allah's favors and commanded them to enter the Holy Land that Allah had assigned for them. They were told not to turn back, or they would become losers. Musa reminded them that Allah had placed prophets among them, granted them forms of authority, and given them favors not granted to many others of their time. The command to enter the Holy Land therefore came after memory. Remember what Allah has already done, then act upon what He commands now. They answered that powerful people lived there and that they would not enter until those people left. 2 believing men, whom Allah had blessed, urged them to enter through the gate and trust Allah. If they truly believed, they should rely upon Him. The majority refused. They said to Musa, in words of shocking disrespect, "Go, you and your Lord, and fight. We will remain sitting here." Musa turned to Allah and said that he had authority only over himself and his brother. He asked Allah to separate them from the defiantly disobedient people. The land was then forbidden to them for 40 years, during which they wandered. The 40 years of wandering were both judgment and transition. A generation shaped by slavery and repeated refusal would not simply be carried into a new land while remaining unchanged. Time in the wilderness separated the promise from the people who had refused to act upon it. The Qur'an does not give a complete travel diary of those decades. It does not name every stopping place or describe every year. The silence prevents us from filling the period with legend. What it does show is Musa continuing as a messenger among people whose choices had delayed the promise. He would not enter the Holy Land as a worldly conqueror. Authentic hadith says that near death, he asked only to be brought within the distance of a stone's throw from it. The request captures both longing and submission. He desired nearness, but accepted Allah's decree. The sea had opened in a single day, but entry into the Holy Land required courage, discipline, and trust from the people themselves. Allah's signs do not remove human responsibility. A generation that refused the command would wander until another generation was prepared. The transformation of a people required far longer. For Musa, this was leadership under constant pressure. He had stood against Pharaoh, but now he had to endure complaint, disobedience, fear, idolatry, and disrespect from people he continued to guide and pray for. The Qur'an later quotes Musa asking his people why they hurt him when they knew that he was Allah's messenger to them. That question gathers years of leadership into a single line. Musa was not wounded by honest questions or human weakness alone. He was hurt by repeated resistance from people who already knew the truth of his mission. Yet the verse also warns what can happen when people knowingly deviate. Hearts may be allowed to deviate further. Guidance is not only information received once, it must be honored through continued obedience. He did not abandon the mission. The Qur'an preserves other events from the life of the children of Israel during Musa's time, but it does not always place them at a fixed point in the chronology. To remain faithful to revelation, we do not pretend to know the exact order where Allah did not reveal it. Among those events was a mysterious murder, a command involving a cow, and a sign that revealed the truth. There was also Qarun, a man from Musa's own people whose wealth became the cause of his ruin. And beyond both of those stories lay another journey, one that would teach Musa himself that no human being, not even a great messenger, possesses all knowledge. The cow, Qarun, and the teacher. The Qur'an tells of a murder among the children of Israel. People disputed and concealed what had happened, but Allah brought out what they were hiding. Musa commanded them to slaughter a cow. Instead of obeying simply, they asked whether he was making fun of them. Musa sought refuge in Allah from behaving like the ignorant. They asked him to call upon his Lord and explain what kind of cow it should be. The answer came, neither old nor very young, but between the two. They asked again for its color. The answer came, a bright yellow cow, pleasing to those who looked at it. Still they asked. Many cows seemed similar to them, and they wanted yet another description. The final answer came. It was a cow not trained to plow the earth or water fields, sound and without blemish. Only then did they say that Musa had brought the truth. They slaughtered it, though they had nearly failed to do so. Every additional question narrowed the available choice. A simple command became difficult because they treated obedience as something to postpone until every possible detail had been demanded. The story does not condemn sincere questions asked to understand guidance. Musa himself asked questions, sought knowledge, and requested explanation. The warning is against questioning used as resistance. When a person keeps asking not to obey more clearly, but to delay the obedience already required. The resurrection of the slain person then answered a question larger than the murder. Allah showed them how He brings the dead to life. A dispute hidden among people became a sign of the final resurrection that no one will be able to conceal. They were commanded to strike the slain person with part of the cow. By Allah's permission, the dead was brought back to life, and the concealed matter was exposed. The Qur'an does not name the victim, the killer, or the owner of the cow. It does not tell the popular stories about a special price, an inheritance plot, or an elaborate family background. The lesson is clear without those additions. Allah brings the dead to life, reveals what people conceal, and commands obedience before endless argument hardens the heart. After describing this sign, the Qur'an warns that hearts can become hard even after witnessing evidence, like stones, or harder still. Some stones release rivers, some split and water comes out, and some fall in fear of Allah. A human heart should not be less responsive than stone. Another man from Musa's people was Qarun. Allah had given Qarun such wealth that even the keys to his treasures burdened a group of strong men. His people advised him not to become arrogant. Allah does not love those who exult in pride. They told him to seek the lasting home through what Allah had given him, without forgetting his lawful share of the world. They told him to do good as Allah had done good to him and not spread corruption in the land. Qarun answered that he had been given his wealth because of knowledge he possessed. He saw wealth as proof of personal superiority rather than a trust from Allah. Had he forgotten that Allah had destroyed generations before him, who were greater in strength and greater in accumulation? One day, Qarun came out before his people in his splendor. The display was public and deliberate. Wealth became theater. Those who desired only the visible life saw the clothing, servants, treasures, and status, but they did not see the accountability attached to them. Those whose hearts were attached to worldly life wished that they possessed what Qarun had. They considered him a man of tremendous fortune, but those given knowledge warned them. The reward of Allah is better for those who believe and do righteous deeds, and such understanding is granted to those who are patient. Then Allah caused the earth to swallow Qarun and his home. The punishment matched the illusion he had created. He believed his possessions made him secure upon the earth, and the earth itself became the means of his disappearance. Qarun's punishment also corrected the people watching him. Before the earth swallowed him, some had treated his wealth as evidence that he possessed a superior fortune. Afterward, the same observers recognized that provision expands and contracts by Allah's will. This does not mean effort and knowledge have no value. Qarun's error was claiming them as independent explanations that removed gratitude and accountability. He used the phrase, "because of knowledge I possess," to erase the giver from the gift. The people of knowledge had seen the same display, but measured it differently. They understood that Allah's reward is better, and that this understanding is received through patience. The event therefore separates information from wisdom. Many could see Qarun's wealth. Only some could see what it was doing to him. No group could save him, and he could not save himself. Allah expands provision for whom He wills and restricts it. Had Allah not shown them mercy, the earth could have swallowed them as well. They realize that those who reject Allah do not truly succeed. The Qur'an calls Qarun a man from Musa's people. It does not establish the popular claims about his exact family relationship to Musa, and we do not add the biblical story of Korah as though it were Islamic revelation. The stories of the cow and Qarun teach different dangers. One is the danger of arguing against a clear command until obedience becomes heavy. The other is the danger of treating wealth as proof that a person needs no one above him. Then came Musa's journey in search of knowledge. Authentic hadith explains that Musa was once asked who was the most knowledgeable person. Musa answered that he was, based upon the revelation and rank he had been given. He was corrected because ultimate knowledge must always be referred back to Allah. The correction did not humiliate Musa. It opened a journey of learning. He answered based on what he knew, but he did not refer ultimate knowledge back to Allah. Allah then informed him that a servant at the meeting point of two seas had knowledge Musa had not been given. Musa did not respond with wounded pride. He set out to learn. He told his young companion that he would continue traveling until he reached the meeting point of the two seas, even if the journey took a very long time. Authentic hadith identifies Musa's young companion as Yusha ibn Nun. The Qur'an leaves him unnamed in the verses, while the Sunnah supplies the name. Yusha traveled, carried the fish, witnessed its extraordinary escape, and remembered the sign after they had passed the appointed place. Allah gave them a fish as a sign. When they reached a rock, they rested. The fish escaped into the sea in an extraordinary way, but the companion forgot to mention it. Musa and his companion continued beyond the place. Later, Musa asked for food because the journey had exhausted them. His companion then remembered the fish and explained that it had taken its way into the sea. Musa understood that this was the sign they had been seeking. They returned by following their own footsteps. There they found a servant from among the servants of Allah. one whom Allah had granted mercy and taught special knowledge. Authentic hadith identifies him as al-Khidr. Scholars have discussed whether al-Khidr was a prophet or a specially guided righteous servant. The Qur'an calls him a servant of Allah and tells us that his knowledge came from Allah. We do not claim certainty beyond what the evidence supports, and we do not repeat the unsupported claim that he must still be alive today. Many scholars understood al-Khidr to be a prophet because his actions depended upon revelation, and he later said that he had not acted from his own command. Other scholars described him as a specially guided righteous servant. The narration preserves the difference without making it the center of the story. What the Qur'an makes certain is sufficient. He was a servant granted mercy and knowledge from Allah. His knowledge was specific, not unlimited. Musa remained a great messenger, and learning something from another servant did not reduce his rank. The story also gives no reliable basis for claiming that al-Khidr is still alive and secretly appearing to people. Such claims have produced legends far beyond the Quranic purpose. The purpose is humility before Allah's knowledge, not fascination with an unseen wandering figure. Musa asked respectfully whether he could follow him in order to learn some of what Allah had taught him. Al-Khidr told Musa that he would not be able to remain patient with him. How could he be patient with matters whose full meaning he did not know? Musa promised that if Allah willed, al-Khidr would find him patient and obedient. The condition was set. Musa should not question anything until al-Khidr himself explained it. They traveled until they boarded a boat. The boat owners recognized al-Khidr and carried them without charging a fare. This detail makes Musa's objection even more understandable. People had shown them generosity, and the vessel was their livelihood. During the journey, a bird landed near the side of the vessel and took a small amount of water from the sea. In the authentic narration, al-Khidr used the image to teach that the knowledge he and Musa possessed, compared with the knowledge of Allah, was no more than what that bird took from the sea. The comparison was not a measurement of Allah's knowledge, which is limitless. It was a lesson in how little created beings hold before the one who knows all things. Then al-Khidr damaged the vessel. Musa objected. Had he damaged it to drown its passengers? The act appeared terrible. Al-Khidr reminded him that he had said Musa would not be able to remain patient. Musa's objection was morally natural according to the knowledge available to him. The test was not whether he cared about justice. It was whether he could wait for an explanation of a matter beyond his knowledge. Musa apologized and asked not to be blamed for forgetting or burdened with excessive difficulty. They continued until they met a boy. Al-Khidr killed him. Musa was horrified. How could a pure life be taken without another life having been taken? This seemed even more serious than the damage to the boat. Again, al-Khidr reminded him that Musa would not be able to remain patient. Musa accepted that if he questioned him once more, their companionship should end. Al-Khidr would then have a valid excuse to separate from him. They continued until they reached a town. They asked its people for food, but the people refused hospitality. Despite this, al-Khidr found a wall about to collapse and repaired it. Musa suggested that he could have taken payment for the work, especially after the town had refused to feed them. At that point, al-Khidr said that it was time for them to part. He would now explain the matters Musa had been unable to endure patiently. The boat belonged to poor people who worked at sea. Ahead of them was a king who seized every sound vessel by force. Damaging the boat preserved it for its owners. What looked like harm was protection. The boy's parents were believers. Allah had revealed that if the boy remained, he would burden them with rebellion and disbelief. Allah intended to replace him with one better in purity and closer in mercy. This is a matter of revealed knowledge, not a permission for ordinary people to judge hidden futures, harm anyone, or claim that they know what Allah has not revealed. The wall belonged to 2 orphan boys in the town. The Qur'an adds that their father had been righteous. His righteousness became a reason for mercy reaching his children after he was gone. The verse gives hope to parents who fear what will happen to their families. Goodness may leave protection behind in ways they never witness. Beneath it was a treasure belonging to them. Their father had been righteous, so Allah intended that the wall remain until the boys reached maturity and recovered their treasure. The people of the town had refused a meal, yet Allah preserved the property of 2 vulnerable children among them because of the righteousness of their father. Al-Khidr concluded that he had not done these acts according to his own independent choice. Their reality had been hidden from Musa until the explanation was given. Prophet Muhammad later expressed the wish that Musa had remained patient, so that more of the story between the 2 servants might have been related. This does not criticize Musa's concern for justice. It highlights how much knowledge might have unfolded had the companionship continued. The journey ends without turning hidden wisdom into a method ordinary people may imitate. Musa judged according to the law and knowledge available to him. Al-Khidr acted only upon knowledge given by Allah and stated that he had not done those acts from his own decision. No one after them may claim secret inspiration as permission to damage property, take life, or violate revealed law. The journey taught a lesson that extends far beyond those 3 events. Human beings judge by the part of the story visible to them. Allah knows the beginning, the hidden middle, and the final result. What appears to be damage may become protection. What appears unrewarded may preserve mercy for another generation. What appears unbearable may contain wisdom a person is not yet able to see. And a person may be completely right to object, according to the law and knowledge available to him, while still lacking knowledge of a matter Allah has specially revealed to another. Musa, the messenger who had faced Pharaoh and spoken with Allah, traveled to learn from a servant who knew what he did not. Knowledge did not make Musa proud. It made him willing to travel. Musa's legacy, however, is larger than the events of his earthly journey. The Qur'an repeatedly refers to the book of Musa as guidance, light, mercy, and a criterion. It speaks of the scriptures of Ibrahim and Musa, and it recalls Musa as chosen, sincere, a messenger, and a prophet drawn near in conversation. No prophet is named more often in the Qur'an. His story is retold not because revelation is repeating without purpose, but because different moments speak to different needs. The infancy story teaches trust. Madyan teaches service. The call teaches prayer and dependence. Pharaoh teaches courage before tyranny. The magicians teach immediate surrender to recognize truth. The sea teaches certainty. The calf and wilderness teach that rescue must be followed by gratitude. Qarun teaches the danger of wealth. Al-Khidr teaches the limits of human knowledge. The Qur'an also used Musa's experience to teach the community of Prophet Muhammad. Believers were warned not to be like those who heard Musa, for Allah cleared him of what they said. In another passage, Musa asked his people why they harmed him when they knew he was Allah's messenger. His pain became a warning against mistreating those who carry guidance. The original revelation given to Musa also remained part of the chain of divine guidance. The Qur'an speaks of the Torah as containing guidance and light, and of Musa's book as a leader and mercy. A group of jinn who heard the Qur'an described it as a book revealed after Musa, confirming what came before it. Even centuries later, the name of Musa remained connected to revelation, law, courage, and worship. Allah also says that He favored Musa and Harun, saved them and their people from great distress, supported them until they overcame, gave them the clear book, guided them to the straight path, and left for them an honored remembrance among later generations. Peace was declared upon Musa and Harun. That honored remembrance is visible in the Qur'an itself. Musa's name returns again and again, while Pharaoh's name as an individual is not even preserved. The messenger's honor continued. The tyrant's self-made glory disappeared. The scripture, the legacy, and the death of Musa. The authentic Sunnah preserves additional events from Musa's life and legacy. The children of Israel once made a false accusation about Musa's body because of his modest habit of bathing privately. Allah cleared him through an extraordinary event in which a stone carried away his garment, and the people saw that their accusation was false. The report is unusual but authentic. It explains the Quranic warning not to be like those who abused Musa, whom Allah cleared of what they said. The point is Musa's modesty and Allah's defense of his messenger, not entertainment at his expense. The Quranic warning not to resemble those who harmed Musa turns the unusual hadith into a serious character lesson. False suspicion against a righteous person is not harmless speech. The children of Israel interpreted Musa's private modesty as evidence of a bodily defect and repeated the claim. Allah cleared him. The story should be narrated without mockery. Its purpose is not to expose Musa, but to expose the cruelty of slander and to show Allah defending His messenger. Prophet Muhammad also described Musa in authentic reports as tall, with curly hair and a brown or ruddy complexion. These reports affirm that the prophets were real human beings, not abstract legends. We preserve the verbal description with respect, and we do not use it as permission to depict him. Another authentic report tells of a debate between Musa and Adam. Musa spoke of the hardship humanity experienced after Adam's error. Adam replied that Musa was blaming him for a matter Allah had written before his creation. The lesson is not that people may use destiny as an excuse for sin. Adam had repented. The debate concerns accepting Allah's decree after an event has occurred and repentance has been made. Human beings remain responsible for their choices, while nothing escapes the knowledge and decree of Allah. The argument therefore does not permit a person to commit a wrong and say that destiny forced it. Adam had admitted his fault and repented. The discussion concerned a calamity already decreed and already followed by repentance. Musa emphasized responsibility. Adam emphasized that no servant escapes Allah's prior knowledge and decree. Both truths stand together. When the end of Musa's earthly life approached, the angel of death came to him in human form. Classical scholars explain that Musa did not recognize him. Musa struck the visitor, and the angel returned to Allah. His eye was restored, and he was sent back with a choice. Musa was told that if he placed his hand upon the back of an ox, he could live 1 additional year for every hair covered by his hand. Musa asked what would come after those years. He was told, death. Musa then chose what was near and asked Allah to bring him close to the Holy Land, within the distance of a stone's throw. Prophet Muhammad later said that if he had been there, he could have shown his companions the place near a red sandhill. Musa did not ask for an immortal worldly life. When offered additional years and told that death would still follow, he chose nearness to the next life. His request focused on closeness to the Holy Land, not on extending authority or gathering more possessions. The final location is described only approximately, near a red sandhill. Prophet Muhammad said that if he had been there, he could have shown his companions the place. The absence of a marked shrine is itself protective. The lesson is Musa's choice and longing, not a location for exaggerated veneration. In another authentic report, during the night journey, Prophet Muhammad passed Musa standing in prayer in his grave. The life of the prophets in the grave belongs to the unseen. We affirm the authentic report without imagining its nature. Musa's story continued to touch the final nation in another profound way. During the night journey and ascension, Prophet Muhammad met Musa in the heavens. Allah initially prescribed 50 daily prayers for the Muslim community. Musa, drawing upon his experience with people, advised Muhammad to return and ask for a reduction because the community would not be able to bear it. The number was reduced repeatedly until 5 daily prayers remained, while the reward remained equal to 50. Every day, Muslims benefit from that exchange. The 5 prayers are not a minor footnote to Musa's legacy. They are part of the living connection between his concern and the worship of the final community. The authentic reports also mention Musa weeping during the ascension when he learned that more members of the later prophet's community would enter paradise. This was not presented as sinful envy. It reflected the sorrow of a messenger over how his own people had responded and the weight he carried for them. The authentic narration presents Musa's tears as the tears of a messenger conscious of the response of nations, not the jealousy of a rival. Prophets do not compete like worldly claimants to fame. Musa had spent a lifetime calling, warning, interceding, and carrying the resistance of his people. His emotion reflected the burden of that history. The Sunnah connects Musa's rescue from Pharaoh to the fast of Ashura. When Prophet Muhammad came to Medina and found that the Jews fasted that day in gratitude for the rescue of Musa and the children of Israel from Pharaoh, he said that the Muslims had a closer claim to Musa. He fasted and instructed the Muslims to fast. So the divided sea is not only an event remembered in history. Muslims remember it through gratitude, fasting, and confidence that Allah's support is not limited to one people or one age. The believer does not worship Musa, but loves him as a messenger of Allah and follows the final prophet who honored him. That gratitude continues in worship. Revelation also preserves a striking continuity. Musa called his people to establish prayer in Egypt. Allah called him in the sacred valley with the command to establish prayer for his remembrance. And during the ascension, Musa helped the final community receive a manageable obligation of 5 prayers with the reward of 50. Prayer stands near the beginning, middle, and living legacy of his mission. His rescue on Ashura also turns history into worship. Muslims do not commemorate Musa through invented rituals or dramatic reenactments. They remember Allah's saving power through fasting, gratitude, and obedience to Prophet Muhammad. Musa's life began beneath the decree of death and ended near the land he had longed to reach. Between those moments, he was returned to his mother, raised in the house of his enemy, forgiven after error, trained in service, called in a sacred valley, supported by his brother, sent gently to a tyrant, vindicated before magicians, guided through the sea, tested by his own people, honored with divine speech, corrected when he lacked knowledge, and remembered by the final prophet. His story is not only the fall of Pharaoh, it is the story of a mother's trust, a brother's support, a messenger's courage, a leader's patience, a servant's repentance, and a believer's refusal to surrender truth before power. It teaches that Allah can place safety inside the house of an enemy, open a road through the sea, bring water from stone, preserve truth beneath a wall, and guide a person through events whose wisdom is not yet visible. It also warns that witnessing miracles does not guarantee gratitude, that rescue does not automatically purify the heart, that knowledge without humility becomes a test, and that wealth without gratitude can disappear into the earth. Musa repeatedly felt fear, grief, anger, and exhaustion. Revelation does not erase his humanity. It shows how a servant carries those emotions while returning again and again to Allah. The tyrant believed that rivers flowed beneath his command. The messenger knew that the Lord of the East and West controlled every river, every sea, every kingdom, and every human heart. Pharaoh's throne vanished. The prayer of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, remains. Subscribe to the Mercy Archive for carefully researched and respectfully presented stories of the prophets. If you found this documentary beneficial, kindly explore our other videos and please like and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and means a great deal to us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.